The term alpha male used to be a badge of honor. If you were called an alpha, it meant you were a leader, someone men respected and women admired. But in 2025, call yourself an alpha and people will clown you. If you even search alpha male on YouTube, you're not gonna find tutorials or masculinity tips. Instead, you'll see hundreds of videos calling so-called alpha males fake, insecure, and even cringeworthy. The term went from a symbol of strength to a meme. So what happened? How did alpha male go from respected to rejected? In this video, we're gonna break down why society turned against the idea of the alpha, the rise of the new masculinity trends like the Sigma male, and what it actually means to be dominant in today's world. So here's what I want you to do first. I want you to visualize what an alpha male is to you. When you think of an alpha male, what is the first thing or even the first person that comes to your head? Now, as you're thinking about that, I'm gonna use Austin AI and really just consult with myself and see what he thinks an alpha male is. What is an alpha male? All right, Austin AI says an alpha male isn't just about dominance or aggression, it's about confidence, leadership, and emotional intelligence. He knows his worth, respects others, and isn't afraid to take charge of life and decisions. It's about being the best version of yourself, not comparing yourself to others. All right, I'm gonna ask one more question. Do you think the term has died in 2025? The term alpha male might evolve, but the qualities behind it, confidence, respect, and emotional strength, will never go out of style. It's not about the label, it's about embodying those traits. You don't need a title to be a leader in your own life. So that's what Austin AI thinks. And by the way, if you wanna try this for completely free, the link will be down below in the description. Upgrade your confidence, your dating life, and consult with literally the AI version of me. Now, if we look at the traditional definition of an alpha male, it really just means the leader of a pack. Someone that men admire and that women want to be with. Every young guy wants to be an alpha. Even in movies, the alpha was represented as the strong leader. And once again, the guy that women wanted. In fact, this actually came from animals. The wolf pack. The alpha in the social hierarchy was the one that led the group, was the one that everybody else followed. He was the dominant male in the social hierarchy. He's physically strong, confident, and influential. Now, there are also some personality characteristics that make an alpha, such as being outgoing, somewhat confrontational, and assertive. And if you look at movies, you'll notice that they often portray the alpha character, sometimes even as a bully. Think of the jocks in like the teen movies or like the high school movies. That guy is often portrayed as the alpha. Now, when I think of alpha people, all I really think about is those traits. And I truly believe the term alpha in itself is just a placeholder word for those traits that represent masculinity. Some real life examples include military leaders, maybe some entrepreneurs, or even some athletes. But that still doesn't explain the fact why you can no longer call yourself an alpha and why the term itself is just looked down upon within 2025. Now, the first reason why I think this is because there's been a cultural shift within society alongside with the feminist movement. Essentially, masculinity has become associated with toxic behavior. So instead of the alpha characteristics being linked with leadership, masculinity, being strong, being courageous, being confident, it is now linked with things such as arrogance, entitlement, and control rather than just pure leadership. And to be honest, I think one of the most influential people who has had an effect on this, specifically tied to the feminist movement, is definitely Andrew Tate. You know, he's super polarizing, and I think the influence he had on young men, including myself a little bit, right, it sort of changed the behavior of men. He essentially red-pilled a whole blue pill society of men who had no idea what the red pill sort of ideology or culture was because they never searched for it. But because Andrew Tate was so popular, he kind of almost instilled these alpha characteristics into the young men. And because of that, the feminist movement started going after him and started really attacking anything associated with masculinity, including calling and being or acting like an alpha male. Now, also, some people say that this is just pure pseudoscience because, once again, this relates to the wolf pack and animal hierarchies, and they're basically saying how this actually does not translate or go into human cultures. But I think it does. We just kind of look at it differently. For example, hundreds of years ago, the alpha in that society would simply just be the king. And if you're a peasant, there's nothing you can do that will make you alpha. So it's purely just based on your social class. However, nowadays with modern society, some might even argue that the president of the United States, especially past presidents, are not an alpha whatsoever. In fact, they don't respect them whatsoever. And I think the cause and shift of the politics alongside with just how our modern society operates from a social standpoint, it kind of makes the word more subjective than objective. Now, not only that, but if we notice, there's been a lot of overuse of the term, especially in dating guru content. I've never used the term myself, but if you search alpha male dating or example, alpha male strategies, shout out to alpha male strategies, love them, honestly. But these terms are really associated within that sphere. And I think because it's seen so much, it just led to a lot of skepticism. And then also many self-proclaimed alphas, they might lack authenticity. Once again, going back to the subjective nature of claiming or being or acting like an alpha. If I say that I'm an alpha male and there's incongruence there, or this person actually thinks I'm a beta male or just doesn't believe in what I'm saying, then of course that's going to spark a bit of controversy. This is why even if the term alpha male was accepted by society, you could never really call yourself an alpha male. You have to let society do that for you. Now, I did mention the term sigma male, and I think over time, a lot of guys weren't really associating themselves with the idea of the alpha because it seemed really black or white. Like, I have to be an alpha male. I have to be strong, courageous, a strong leader. I have to be very outgoing. And some guys just didn't necessarily associate it with that term, but they still felt like they were confident in their own way. And maybe they didn't have a lot of friends, but they were still successful on their own path. And this was the rise of the sigma male. Now, honestly, there's so many ways to describe somebody. And, this whole alpha, beta, omega, if you get too deep in it, it can be a little confusing. But I do believe the young generation, especially Gen Z, I feel like they associate themselves more with the sigma male, which is characterized as the lone wolf. He's independent. He's detached from social hierarchies. I think a good example of somebody who's actually older, who I might classify as the sigma male, is somebody like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson doesn't necessarily have that aura or that strong presence that Andrew Tate would, but he's very intellectual. He can articulate himself very well. He's highly respected. He is confident in his own way. He is successful on his own path. Most people wouldn't say that Jordan Peterson is a beta male, but they probably wouldn't say that he's a alpha male based on what people actually think what an alpha male is. So maybe the sigma male does have a new place within sort of how men describe themselves. And I also think that's a reason why the alpha male has slowly gone in the shadows. Now, the thing about the alpha male is that I always ask myself this question: are alpha males born or made? And I think about myself, right? Before I learned about masculinity, and especially for my guys who were raised by single mothers, it's almost as if you have to train these alpha characteristics within yourself, because naturally I wasn't a very confident person. Naturally, I wasn't really a leader. Naturally, I wasn't one to be confrontational. Even today, I'm really not that confrontational. And before, I would let women and people walk all over me. And I think that's honestly because of how I was raised. And so I had to really train those things out of me and put these other characteristics inside of myself. Some might call it alpha or just being more masculine. And I think over time, I was able to really nurture myself into that new identity. Even if you look at old videos of myself, I am completely a different person.
Actually, I still find myself pretty geeky at some point. Actually, I'm majoring in computer information systems at my college. So I would still say I still got a little geeky side of me still.
And some of you guys might comment on that too, not just internally, but also obviously externally. I think it's a combination of both. You can be born through your personality type to be more extroverted, confident, more of a leadership sort of guy. But also, a lot of guys just aren't born with that naturally, so they have to really train that identity into themselves. But you know what's funny? There's actually 4 different masculine archetypes associated with this that I've learned, and we're gonna go through them really quickly. Up first, we have the guy on the surface who looks alpha, but internally he has the beta behavior. And I'm sure you probably know different guys just like this. I found that a lot of rappers who act tough but aren't really respected or still trick on women and let women walk all over them tend to fall within this sort of archetype, where on the surface they look like the masculine man, but like internally they still have that soft spot and they're still a bit weak. And then also we have the beta on the external. He just doesn't look like a guy who is worthy of respect. Maybe he's underweight, maybe he's skinny, maybe he's overweight. Like your initial impression of him isn't this guy would be a leader. But internally, he has more of those alpha characteristics. He's confident, he's charismatic, he does like to lead. And these are sort of the guys who honestly are never respected. Some might call them the nerds who follow Andrew Tate, but actually never apply his advice, or they sit and scroll masculinity content nonstop, and they have the idea of what they want to act like, but physically it just doesn't express itself. And so I also think because of that, you really have to show a strong congruence between your look on the external and also your behavior. Now, what's funny is that this can sometimes backstab you just a little bit, because with myself, I am muscular, I wear jewelry, got tattoos. And so a lot of the time, people might be just initially intimidated by my look, especially women. But when they actually talk to me, I always get the saying that you're actually a lot different than what I expected, because they expected me to be super arrogant, too confident, you know, full of myself. And some of these things are also associated with the whole alpha masculine identity. Now for the third archetype, we got the true alpha guy. He's alpha on the external, but also internally, he is the alpha confident guy that people respect. Obviously, this is the ideal sort of archetype that most guys want to be or should aim for. And at number 4, we have the beta, the B on B, the guy who lacks confidence, lacks the presence, has no sex appeal, like externally and internally, he's just not that guy. You know, and this guy can definitely make a transformation over the course of time, but he definitely has a lot of work he needs to do. So guys, I don't think the alpha is dead. I truly just think it's evolved. I still don't think it's right for any guy to call themselves an alpha. I do think society sort of dictates that for you. But at the end of the day, I do believe that every man should strive to be a leader, strive to be competent, strive to be confident, and be congruent externally and also internally with his behaviors. Because once again, you don't have to call yourself an alpha, because if you really are one, the world will definitely let you know. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to check out AI Austin, completely free to try. I'm gonna leave a link down below in the description. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one.